So I used $52 worth of gas, guys, and I ended up paying $155 just for gas. Hey guys, it's your girl Shelone. Welcome back to the channel. Hi, Wagwan. For those of you who are new here, I'm a Jamaican immigrant living in Calgary, Alberta, and I share my experiences, what I wish I knew, life in Canada as a Jamaican immigrant, and more here. So if you're new here, subscribe. If you've been here, leave a comment. I'd like to say hi to my existing subscribers. I haven't been here for a little while, so now that I'm back in the groove of things, it's really nice to see some familiar faces in the comment section. So be sure to leave a comment, say hi. But yeah, guys, I'm here because I wanted to kind of just talk about the things that I wish I knew before moving to Canada, and this lives dearly with my heart, within my heart. My husband and I, we talk about these things all the time, where, we're not saying we wouldn't have moved here if we knew these things ahead of time, but it would have definitely helped us to not have seen Canada with this rose-colored lens. And by no means am I, biting the hand that feeds me, but I just want everyone that watches my videos to be aware of what it's really like living in Canada and things that I wish I knew before moving here. Number one, I would say, is healthcare wait times. And this is not something I was prepared for. Even though, we like to throw stones at the healthcare in, the small islands like where I'm from in Jamaica. And while wait times can be long for like specific procedures, the wait time for the most basic things in Canada can be ridiculously long. Like, I'm hearing stories of people just trying to go to a walk-in clinic, and they're like, sorry, we're not accepting any patients today, or I need a family doctor, sorry, they're no longer accepting patients. It is so hard to get a family doctor here. It is so hard just to see a physician here, that a lot of people end up going to the emergency room for like basic things and end up waiting even so much longer. The wait times here are ridiculous. And when it comes to when you need to see a specialist, I hurt my wrist. I fell on it ice skating sometime in, I think it was January. I fell on this wrist, and I needed to have an MRI done. Because they did the ultrasound and they did some x-rays, and they could be like, they saw that I had some damage to my left wrist. So I needed an MRI, and I may actually need to do some plastic surgery on my wrist. I believe it was February at this point. It took me a while to, to see my family doctor, and then to get the x-rays done, and then to get the x-rays and the ultrasound. I remember when they reached out to me to set the appointment for the ultrasound, I believe it was February, and the date they were giving me was April. I remember I cried on the phone call because I was in so much pain, and I couldn't believe that I had to wait 2 months just to have an x-ray and an ultrasound done. And I believe the lady called me back maybe like the next day because somebody had canceled, or there was some cancellation, and I could have gotten it done in like a week's time. So there's that. And when they did do the x-ray and they did do the ultrasound, and I needed the MRI, I believe it was like maybe March, and I saw your MRI scheduled for April. And I was like, yay, 1 month. And then I looked again, and the date was April 2025. Sorry if the screen looks a little different. I had to just readjust the camera a while ago. But in order for me to get an MRI done, I would have to wait an entire year. So yeah. And in addition to the long wait times, even though the healthcare is free, that doesn't include dental care, that doesn't include eye care, It doesn't include prescriptions. It doesn't include other types of like, for example, things like a podiatrist, a chiropractor, um, things like that are not included. There's a lot of things that you need private insurance for, and a lot of people don't have access to healthcare here in Canada. Yet if something is physically wrong with you, you could see a doctor. You could see a doctor. You should be able to see a doctor, but then even that, the wait time is pretty long. So I think the healthcare system here is not what it seems, and that's something I wasn't prepared for. So for number two, it's definitely high taxes. The average Canadian pays more in their overall tax than what they spend on food and shelter. So let that sink in. Let that sink in. We are a heavily taxed country, and you know, it's your income doesn't get you a long way here. So in addition to us not getting the same income as you would get in the United States, our little income doesn't get us very far here because we are so heavily taxed. I said the third thing that I wasn't prepared for is the housing market in Canada. Yes, I knew that, you know, it was expensive, but I didn't realize how volatile the housing market could be. And the reason why I say volatile is because, for example, a house, maybe like a detached home at the time, let's say in a particular neighborhood that I was looking at, maybe in 2020, early 2021, a 4-bedroom, like 2+ bath home in that neighborhood was like $550,000 in a really good neighborhood. By the end of 2020, 2021, 2022, those house prices are like $875,000. I don't even want to know what those house prices look like now. So yes, I knew that houses were on the more expensive side, and I know I'm just talking about Calgary. I know it's even more ridiculous in other provinces, but I'm talking about just from my experience, you know, like whatever is applicable here is applicable to other places, but maybe at a higher scale. Yes, you could go live in a small town, but I'll talk about that later, in terms of why I may not want to necessarily live in a small town as an immigrant. But the housing market is kind of crazy. It's highly competitive. It's very expensive, and I don't think it's not. It's really difficult just for the average. It's really difficult for the average Canadian to find accommodations. So just imagine that immigrant who's using all of their life savings just to immigrate to Canada. I would say number four is weather variability. And no, I'm not talking about extreme winters. Yes, I know about that, and I was prepared for that. What I was not prepared for is the weather variability. That means it could be bright and sunny at 9 o'clock, hailing by 10 o'clock, raining by 10:30, and sunny again by 11. No, I don't think anything can prepare you for that personally, because it's not like you can go on the forecast and say, hey, what's the forecast for today? And it's gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be sunny with a chance of rain. Nothing prepares you for it to change that quickly. And you know, there's a video of me and my husband putting out some chairs. We bought some chairs, we set them up. We just thought, oh, we're gonna go pick up the kids. Hailstorm. The entire set of chairs were completely wet before we got a chance to use them on the deck. I'll actually see if I can link the video somewhere here. But yeah, weather variability. Number five, high cost of utilities. I'm not even going to expound much on this. I'm just going to open one of my utility bills. So this is what a bill would look like maybe in the winter versus like in the spring, I would say. So this is what gets me, right? So you typically in the Caribbean, you only pay for the water that you use. Not here. So you have water treatment and supply. You have, so that's the water that you use, and then you have to pay for wastewater collection and treatment, and then you pay for storm water management, and in addition to that you pay for waste and recycling. So at some point it's like, okay, then what? Like, you also pay property taxes. So it's like, and the property taxes are like, depending on where you live or the size of the home as well, can be thousands of dollars per year. which is equivalent to like maybe $500 if you live in a modest home. Nothing special, just a modest home. You're paying like $500 per month on property taxes, $600 per month on property taxes. So it's like, okay, then what, like, you know, you're paying for waste and recycling. And then if you want to throw, let's say this desk here, I want to throw this desk away. You have to pay to throw that desk away. You have to you have to pay to throw the desk away. So if you can't just take it to the dump and dump it. You have to pay to dump the desk. I kid you not, guys. And let's not even get me started on natural gas because of Mr. Trudeau's carbon tax. Let's say we use $50 worth of gas. There's like an administration charge, ATCO fixed charge, ATCO variable charge, rate riders charge, federal carbon tax, municipal franchise fee paid to City of Calgary. So I used $52 worth of gas, guys, and I ended up paying $155 just for gas. When you add all the fees are more than the amount of gas that we used. This is what I'm talking about when I say it is absolutely ridiculous. The utility fees are absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen anything in my life where the fees are like twice as much as the actual amount of like gas that you use. Nuts. When I say it's nuts, I mean it's absolutely nuts. The only thing that's kind of makes sense, but also not really, is maybe electricity. Here, electricity is, let's say I use $35 for the energy. There's an $8.66 charge. Then there's a distribution charge, transmission charge, balance pool allocation charge, rate riders charge, local access fee paid to City of Calgary. So I'm using $35 worth of electricity, but I'm paying $115. That makes sense to you? No, it don't make sense to me. Personally speaking, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's why I had to take out utility as its own, because utility is extremely high in this gosh darn country. But yeah. So number 6 is underemployment. And I will tie this into just job market discrimination here. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. Immigrants are underemployed. It's just because it's not my reality, it doesn't mean that it's not the reality of a lot of immigrants that migrate to this country. We have doctors driving Uber, dentists doing food delivery, or working in insurance, or dentists working for beverage companies. It's a thing here, and I think it's really, Canada needs to fine-tune their recognition, their credential recognition policies, whatever it may be, because under no circumstances should we have doctors driving Ubers and there's a shortage of doctors in this country. Doesn't make any sense. You can't be telling people come here, come to Canada, but we can't apply our previous work experiences and qualifications here. It really doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, there's so much job discrimination within the job market where you look up and you look at your managers and then it's like, okay, then all of them have one skin complexion. You know, it's like, oh, we're going to prioritize other candidates that have the elusive Canadian experience, because only experience in Canada matters apparently, and the experience that you've ascertained outside of Canada, this is just not relevant. It's not important. It doesn't exist, despite them requiring you to do credentials assessment to get here. It really makes no sense, guys. So number 7, I will say, is definitely isolation from family and friends. Of course, I knew that I would not have family and friends here, but I think that I don't think you're properly prepared to deal with that in terms of just how, I guess, just the distance. And sometimes when you move as well, you know, sometimes people may have this perception that, oh, she's in Canada, you know, she's got life made, but they don't understand how expensive it is to live here. So a lot of family and friends just expect that, okay, you're in Canada now, I need to have a monthly allowance from you, and you know, it's expected because you're in Canada. People don't understand that Canada is such a freaking expensive place to live. And you know, whether it is family members expecting you to like take on your expenses here and then support their lifestyle there, if it's not that, then it's friends who somehow think, you know, just have this crab in a barrel mentality that, oh, okay, then you know, this person is in Canada now and they've formed these things in their head that, oh, you know, she's acting like she's and just crazy stuff. So it's very isolated moving to a new country. I will say number 8 is the cultural homogeneity in smaller communities. Listen, don't ask me to move to another province unless it's like BC or Ontario. And the reason for that is because the reality, oh, and Quebec too. Quebec isn't so bad, but the reality of it is I don't want to move anywhere where there aren't people that look like me. I need to see some percentage of people that look like me, because when you move to those smaller towns and those smaller cities that, you know, it's a little less diverse, if you didn't feel isolated before, you're gonna feel isolated then, because you're not meeting anybody from the Caribbean. If you're from the Caribbean, you're not seeing anybody that looks like you. And who wants to live somewhere where nobody looks like them? Personally, I don't want to do that. And you know, that can then in turn lead to a lot of racial and ethnic discrimination. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that racial discrimination and ethnic discrimination does not exist in Canada, because it does. It does here, and I'll tell you this, guys. The racial discrimination, come here, come here. The racial discrimination and the cultural discrimination exists here in Canada just as much as it does in the United States. The only difference is the people in the United States are very in your face about it. In America, if they're racist, they're gonna be bold about it. They're gonna be proud and racist in America. In here in Canada, it's very discreet. It's there. Don't let them fool you with their fake smiles. It's here. It is here. It is here. It is here. It is here. Remember, so Shelone telling you, you know, remember that Shelone told you guys that it is here. And just because you haven't gotten it in your face, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And that's all I'm going to say. And of course, number 9, moving on to number 9, is the high cost of childcare. I have 2 children. Would I recommend anybody raising children here in Canada? Nope. Without friends and family? Nope. It is extremely expensive, guys. Childcare is so expensive, and the government tries to subsidize it, but the daycares just increase the fees. So if the government subsidize $100, the daycare raise it to $150, so you still have to pay $50 out of pocket. So you still have to pay so much money out of pocket, despite the government subsidizing more than 50% of the cost of daycare. It's kind of ridiculous here, if I'm being honest with you. And in addition to the high cost of daycare, childcare, the more money you make, the less child benefits you get from the government. So it's like, okay, you need to make more money because it's so expensive here, and then the government penalizes you by giving you less social benefits for trying to make ends meet. So it's like a lose-lose situation. It's either you don't make as much and get enough from the government to kind of get by, or you make enough money to get by and then lose the extra assistance that you would have gotten from the government. But yeah. And last and final is bilingual requirements. I will say that I did not expect it to be such a huge necessity in terms of certain provinces. I know that, for example, for Quebec, just socially, if you want to like assimilate socially in Quebec, you have to know French. You have to know how to speak French. It is just what it is. And I think that just generally speaking, you know, they give this perception that, hey, if you know English or French, you'll be fine. No, if you're a French speaker living in other cities, it's going to be very difficult for you because there is no bilingual signage. I don't recall seeing any bilingual signage anywhere here in Calgary. You know what I mean? So if you're a French speaker thinking that, oh, you're just going to move here and it's going to be like bilingual language signage everywhere, that's not the case. It's just mostly in Quebec. If you're going to live in Quebec, you got to learn French. And if you're living outside of Quebec, you gotta learn English. So it's not as bilingual as you think, where if you have one language you could like live everywhere in Canada or anywhere. That's not the case. So yeah, those are some little things that, you know, I didn't really think about before moving here. Because even jobs too, like I've seen jobs say must be bilingual. So it's not what you think in terms of, you know, the language barriers and stuff. But yeah, if you're living in Canada as an immigrant, is there anything that you wish you knew before moving here? And if you're thinking about moving here, are any of these things deal breakers for you? Or are you still planning to move here? Or if you're just watching from anywhere else in the world, what do you think about these things that I personally wish I knew? Am I like being, you know, a drama queen right now? Are these just regular things everywhere? You know, I know that some of these things are applicable to other countries too, but I just wish I knew the extent of which these things were before moving here. But anyways, once again guys, thank you for watching. And yeah, if you made it this far, I don't know why I'm chuckling, guys. But if you made it this far, I want you to leave some baguettes, leave some bread. I don't know, when I think of French, I think of baguettes. So leave some bread emoji. Confuse people in the comment section and leave some bread. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.